If you've been sitting there thinking, I need to overhaul my entire life, I want to stop you right there because that thought is exactly what's keeping you stuck. By the end of this video, you'll know the three actual shifts that create change in midlife, and not one of them involves burning your life down and starting over. If you appreciate this type of content, gently tap that like button. Let's get into it. Here's the myth nobody warned you about. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that if life feels heavy, the fix has to be huge. New system, new app, new everything all mapped out and running perfectly by Monday. So you make the big plan, you build the whole thing out, and a few days in, it turns out the system you built isn't actually the system you needed. I'll give you my own example because I lived this one last year. I was building out the different lanes of my business, and I knew I needed something to keep me on track. Checklists, upcoming tasks, and a schedule where my meeting times actually stayed sacred instead of getting run over. So I went looking for the perfect tool. I tried Notion. I tried Motion. I sat down and fully set each one out. Categories, tags, automations, the whole thing. And within a few days of actually trying to live inside that system, I realized it wasn't what I needed at all. Not because the tools were bad, because I'd built a beautiful, complicated system for a problem that needed something much simpler. And here's the part that really gets me. And maybe you've done this too. Instead of blaming the plan, we blame ourselves. We think, I just don't have the discipline to stick with the system. Honestly, the plan was never the problem. The size and complexity of the plan was the problem. Real, lasting change in midlife almost never starts with an overhaul. It starts with one honest shift at a time. And that shift usually happens in three specific places. So let's go through them one by one. All right, first step, clarity. Not clarity as in some vague feeling of figuring it out. I mean literal understanding what season of life you're actually in right now. Midlife doesn't hand you a memo. Nobody sits you down and says, congratulations, you are now in the sandwich season. Juggling kids, aging parents, a career, and your own changing body all at the same time. You just wake up one day and everything feels heavier, and you assume that's a personal failing instead of, honestly, just math. You're carrying more categories of responsibility at once than you were 10 years ago. That's not you falling apart. That's your season. Let me show you what this looks like in my own life right now, because naming your season out loud is genuinely half the work. It's midsummer break as I'm recording this, which means my inclusion specialist hat is literally hanging on a hook, waiting for school to start back up in August. That role isn't gone. It's just not active right now, and that's allowed. At the same time, I'm in a season of getting healthy, and I'm building out three different lanes in my business: affiliate marketing, coaching, and being an author. And underneath all of that, I'm continually working on improving my own mindset, because that's the thing that actually holds the other three up. That's a lot of categories running at once. And if I judged myself against a version of having it together that assumed I was only doing one of those things at a time, I'd feel like I was failing at all of them. But once I named the season, teaching on pause, health rebuild, 3-lane business build, ongoing mindset work, I stopped measuring myself against the wrong picture. So ask yourself the same thing. What season am I actually in right now? What's hanging on the hook waiting? What's actively running? Once you can name the season, you stop measuring yourself against a version of life that doesn't apply anymore. That right there is clarity. Not answers, just an accurate picture of where you're standing. Next is shift number 2, capacity awareness. This is a little more uncomfortable because it means being honest about your real limits, not your ideal limits, not the limits you had 15 years ago, your actual current capacity for time, energy, and responsibility. Most of us are still operating off an old capacity number. We're budgeting our week like we're 32 with no aging parents and no perimenopause fog. And then we wonder why we're constantly $200 short by Thursday, so to speak. Here's where I have to call myself out a little. I have a pattern, and maybe you have this too. I tend to jump at new opportunities. Something crosses my path, and in the moment, it feels easy, exciting, like an obvious yes. But then I let it sit for a week or two, and that same opportunity no longer holds the same appeal. It's not that the opportunity was bad, it's that I said yes from excitement instead of from an honest read on my actual capacity in that moment. So here's a simple check I've started using, and you can borrow it. At the end of each day this week, do a quick gut check on just 4 things: energy, sleep, focus, mood. Nothing fancy, just a quick, honest read. After a week, you'll start to see a pattern. The specific hours, tasks, or people that are quietly draining you faster than you expected. For me, that pattern showed up as new opportunities that felt exciting on day 1 and heavy by day 10. That's my real capacity talking if I'm willing to listen to it. Capacity awareness isn't about doing less because you're weak. It's about budgeting honestly instead of pretending you still have last decade's bandwidth, or in my case, pretending every exciting yes will still feel exciting 2 weeks from now. Quick break. Before I get to the third shift, I want to invite you into my weekly newsletter. Every week, I send out one simple idea like this one, plus a short practical exercise you can use immediately. No fluff, no 40-step plan. If this episode is resonating, that newsletter is where we go deeper together. Link is in the description and the pinned comment below. Okay, back to it. Shift number 3, simplifying the load. This is the one people skip because it feels like giving something up. And giving things up in midlife can feel like failure. It's not. Simplifying the load means going through your actual responsibilities, expectations, and commitments and asking a very direct question about each one. Does this need to stay exactly as it is right now? Or can it get smaller or come off my plate entirely for a season? Here's how this looks in my life right now. Out of everything I've got going, teaching, health, affiliate marketing, coaching, writing, mindset work, I've made a decision. Right now, I'm focusing on my podcast and growing my coaching practice. That's it. Everything else has either slowed down on purpose or taken a back seat until I feel like it's actually time to pick it back up. Not abandoned, not failed, just simplified down to what this season can actually hold. That was not a comfortable decision to make because it meant looking at things I care about, writing, affiliate marketing, and saying, not right now, instead of never. But that's exactly the shift. This might mean saying no to something you've always said yes to. It might mean lowering a standard you set for yourself 10 years ago that nobody else is even measuring you against anymore. The goal isn't a smaller life, it's a life-sized life. One that actually fits the season and the capacity you just named in the first 2 shifts. So here's how these 3 shifts work together, because I don't want you doing them like a checklist. Clarity tells you what season you're in. For me, that's teaching on pause, health rebuild, 3-lane business, mindset work underneath it all. Capacity awareness tells you what you actually have to give in that season. For me, that's noticing which yeses are excitement-driven instead of capacity-driven. And simplifying the load is you adjusting your commitments to match those first 2 truths instead of fighting against them. For me, right now, that means podcast and coaching, full focus, everything else on a shelf. That's it. That's the whole system. No Notion dashboard with 14 tabs, no 5 a.m. wake up call, no color coded life plan I'll abandon in a week. Just 3 honest questions asked in order, revisited whenever life shifts again. Because it will. School will start back up in August. My hook will need that hat again. And when that happens, I'll run these same 3 questions again because the season will have changed and the plan needs to change with it. And I want to leave you with this. Real change for midlife women rarely starts with a total life overhaul. It starts with recognition, then permission, then one honest shift at a time. You don't need to fix your whole life this week. You need to pick one of these 3 shifts and sit with it for a few days. That's genuinely enough to start. And if part of what's making this heavy is that you keep saying yes when you want to say no, I made a video on exactly that. You can check it out by clicking right here. And next time, we're going to talk about something that trips a lot of us up right after we get this kind of clarity. Why the systems and routines we build keep quietly falling apart, even with the best intentions. That one's coming soon, so keep an eye out for it.